Chapter 6. 3 nights had passed, and still Astrid did not risk sleep. Her limbs bowed like green wood, wobbling with each step. Forcing her feet to obey her command, she trudged onward. The lower rim of the Skog Mountains sprawled above the treetops. Astrid used their white peaks to guide her journey toward Halad. "If I do not sleep soon, I will faint from exhaustion. Yet I cannot sleep without the ward, nor can I seek the young man." Thoughts of Balin's task attacked, but she pressed them back, not wanting to consider the consequences if he failed. The stillness unnerved her, reminding her that she was truly alone. Though she had dreamed of a life without isolation, she never thought the price for freedom would be the loss of her mother. Nightfall threatened as she continued deeper into the towering timbers. The reddish-pink blaze seized what remained of the overcast sky. Her nerves bunched her muscles. Her inhalations resounded in her ears. The entire forest around her quieted, but her intuition cautioned her. "Something's following me." Astrid steadied herself, holding her breath in her lungs. She shifted her gaze, searching side to side. Shadows threw long stretches of the woods into darkness. She felt eyes upon her, watching her from behind. She removed her pack and assembled a makeshift tent from rawhide stowed within her belongings. She slipped inside the structure, but quickly exited out the back under the cover of an evergreen. Working her way through the woodland, she stalked amongst the pine without a snap of a twig to betray her. When she neared their position, she leaped out, drawing her blade, landing on the trail behind her pursuers. 2 oversized wolves, one silver, one black, spun around with their hackles raised. Astrid flinched. She had assumed her trackers were human. The sight of the predators alarmed her. Growls rumbled from the throats of both the creatures, their lips pulled back to reveal sharp white teeth. The black hunched his shoulders into a crouch, ready to spring. Astrid leveled her sword to the height of their heads, slowly backing up. Astrid's heart banged against her chest. Her perception of time slowed. The black wolf hunkered down to leap, but he stopped abruptly, tucking his tail. A sensation caught the back of her neck. A warm, intense breath covered her. It wet her hair, penetrating to her scalp. Steam rolled around the side of her head, spreading into the night air in front of her. Both wolves cowed, slinking backward. Slowly, she turned to face the beast behind her. Its palmate antlers stretched twice her height. Its brown eyes stared at her, unblinking. The moose's massive, muscled body quivered with raw energy. The beast was an anomaly, both in size and the fact that its antlers remained long after winter had settled across the land. Astrid's head thundered with the sound of her thumping heart until all she perceived was the pulse of her blood pumping. Another heartbeat joined hers. Astrid realized the beast's life force pulsed along with hers, and together they formed a rhythm, a song. She stared at the beast and recognized the deep, rich color of the earth in the moose's gaze. For an instant, she shared a common bond with the beast, an unbreakable tie. Then, with a snort, the animal turned and lumbered back through the trees. Astrid watched, unable to move, listening to the heart song that played within her being. She swung around to search for the wolves, but they had vanished. Astrid returned to her campsite, built a fire, sought the warmth of her tent, and settled down under her fur-lined mantle. "Sleep will take me soon. and I must face the shadow without the ward for protection. The gray, shifting landscape materialized around Astrid. She caught sight of white trousers next to her. She rolled onto her back. The ebony-haired man kneeled by her side, his cloudy eyes staring down at her. Longing played in the shadows of his gaze, while a startling smile graced his lips. His beauty set her heart hammering. "You've returned to me." She fought back a lump in her throat. "You sent your assassins to murder my mother, but you failed." Though she didn't speak out loud, her words sounded through the space. Hurt flashed across his face at her accusation. His eyes fluctuated again, switching between so many emotions that it confused Astrid. "Nay, love, you misunderstand." Astrid sat upright, scooting backward, scrambling to her feet. The man followed, slithering like an uncoiling snake. The fluidity of his movements hypnotized Astrid for a moment. She struggled to compose herself and grabbed at her side, snatching her blade. Within a heartbeat, the point of her sword rested in the hollow of the man's neck. He grinned, obliging the tip by raising his hands in the air. Astrid's arms quaked at the sight of his surrender. Her mind flashed with the memory of his arms around her, melting into her, desiring her. She drew air through her nose, willing herself to keep steady and banish the treacherous thought. "I am here to help, not hinder." His face flooded with compassion as he continued. "Your mother didn't understand you. She blocked you from your power. She forced you to believe the shadowwalk was wrong, when in fact it is instinctual, as natural as life itself." "You lie." "Do I? You are here, aren't you?" He slunk closer, the heat of his skin palpable even with the short distance between them. His face continued to change from tender to angry to loving within a single breath. "Stand back," she warned, tightening her grip on the hilt of her sword. But she knew that was wrong. A tense hold would slow her movement. She attempted to relax. Her fingers refused, squeezing themselves around the iron even tighter. Was it not easy to slide into the walk? Why would a mother try to keep her daughter from using her innate talents? You know it's a gift you possess, don't you? The shadowwalk is a dark and evil thing. Like you. Nay, like you. Her voice quivered. The place she feared inside herself opened like a swelling blackness. "I am the same as you, love." "I am nothing like you." His insinuation caused her blood to rush, fearing he spoke the truth. In response, she swiped her blade, striking the man clean through his middle. His figure disappeared upon contact, melding within the haze. Astrid flicked her gaze side to side, searching for the man. The landscape rolled around her, changing as it did, causing her head to spin. "You are exactly like me," soothed the man's voice from behind her. She swirled around to meet him. He stood opposite to her, unscathed, fully formed, the grin still charming his face. Panic bubbled in her chest. "I am part of you." Though his tone remained steady, his features softened again, brimming with understanding. Astrid struggled against the desire to believe him. She heaved her sword once more and jabbed at the man. He disappeared, then reappeared a few steps away. She lunged, stabbed, and thrust with her blade, but each time he evaded her blow. The muscles in her arms finally failed. She lowered her sword, gulping air. "You cannot fight me." The man disappeared and materialized behind her, slipping his hand over her sword arm to quell her blade. His breath warmed her neck. His hair brushed her cheek. The nearness of him flooded her insides with heat. "For your entire life, not a soul has understood what you are." Astrid pinched her eyes closed against his words. He pressed his body into hers. "Even you don't understand your capabilities." The tone of his voice rolled over her like a sweet caress. A tremor ran the full length of her spine. His arms engulfed her, wrapping around her middle, pulling her close. The hotness of him burned like fire on her skin. "But I do, and I can show you how to unleash your power, if you let me." For a moment, she surrendered to the connection. She craved contact, speech, and intimacy with another, and this man provided what she sought. "Your mother failed to show you because she is not like you and me." His words pricked her senses. Astrid realized she was not the beacon of light her mother proclaimed. She possessed both dark and light powers within her, and in the ShadowWalk she could speak. And if she could speak... "You are right. I am not like my mother." The muscles in her throat loosened. The beat of her heart blossomed, spreading throughout her limbs, filling her ears. In the distance, the thrum of the moose's life force resonated with her own, until her body flooded with rhythm. The mother's song surged through her. A beam of light rushed forward from inside her. Astrid allowed the light to flow from her chest to her limbs. The brightness swelled, running the length of her arms like a dam releasing. She reached up, drawing the ward with her finger. The light complied, weaving through the distance, forming the symbol that hung in midair as she sang, "I'll heat!" The word sounded, its melody lilting, pulsing, and chiming. Lightness filled her being. The threat of darkness receded. She felt as if she could take flight. Astrid squirmed out of the grip of the shadow and faced him. "But I am not like you either." His smile sunk as a bubble of brightness sprung up around her. The gray landscape fluctuated as the man's body wore thin. With the grin erased from his face, his features looked harsh. His ever-changing emotions became unreadable once more. "When everyone else has failed you, when you are alone, and you will be because they cannot understand what you possess inside you, when they have all abandoned you, and they will, I will be here waiting because I understand your power. I understand what you need. This is not done, love. Your darkness will always be a part of you, and you will always belong to me." Then the shadow winked out of existence. Beams of light fought through the thick branches of spruce and pine, casting rays of warmth on Astrid's tent. The young woman's eyes blinked open. Her body thrummed with vibrations. Trees hummed, the earth whirred, the wind buzzed, and through it all, the subtle melody of the mother weaved around her. "I hear your song." A pang of sadness sunk into her when she realized her voice remained locked in her throat, and yet I still cannot speak out loud. Astrid crawled from her shelter and stretched, refreshed from a full night's sleep. She allowed her new perception to move outward. She revelled in the songs of the Wettersee beyond the woodlands, and the tune of the vast mountain range of the Shegs to the norther. Leagues in the distance, she sensed the presence of a young man, of Halad. The awareness of it startled her. Unlike viewing him through the ShadowWalk, his existence reached out to her, entwining with her own, like the other half of a missing piece. His emotions besieged her: loneliness, responsibility, and longing. His heartbeat thudded with Astrid's, creating a counterpoint rhythm. And she knew the time had come to seek the young man who held her destiny. The Shadow Lord waited in the confines of the shifting landscape until a fair-haired man appeared from the haze. After many years of mastering the skill, the walk always gifted its user with a subtle grace that manifested as pliability of the person's physical stature. Lothar was a perfect example. He looked as if he could bend in all directions. His frost-white hair betrayed the hallmark of those born of noble heritage in Alfenheim. His paleness further marked him as Alfin, but the blackness of his eyes marred the ivory of his skin. He glided toward the shadow and bent to one knee. His indigo sleeves billowed as he swept his arms back in reverence. We waited years for her to expose her whereabouts, and your assassins failed to kill the girl's guardians.
I apologize, my liege. We underestimated her skill. We could not have predicted 2 would outmatch 6 of my best.
I hope you have not lost track of her.
My wolves stalk her as we speak. Even if they were to lose her scent, I have spies all over Scandia. We will know the instant she reaches the Guardian and exposes his identity. I have an army ready to go through the ShadowWalk and take on an entire city in his defeat, if need be.
The girl cannot be harmed. I need her to come to our side.
Ja, my liege. The boy will be slain before they can complete their bond, but the girl will be left to you.
He must be killed before they are bonded, or his death may harm the girl as well.
It will be as you say.
Lothar swept to his knee again. The shadow smiled down at him. Your skill in the ShadowWalk increases. I believe you are my most gifted disciple.
My liege flatters me.
Nay, I speak truly. You will be well rewarded when the time comes.
Anything you bestow upon me will be more than I can ever desire.
Take your leave, then. Notify me after the deed has been done. Lothar bowed his head and dissipated, leaving the shadow alone in the shifting landscape. And in case you should fail again, you overconfident gelding, I have spies of my own.